Hello there, and welcome to Unleash the Network podcast, a podcast that aims to educate and inspire listeners by sharing stories from Mastercard Foundation scholars and African Leadership Academy alumni who have gone on to make a positive impact in their communities and promote values of leadership, innovation, and entrepreneurship. Cyril, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you very much for joining Renatas, right? I hope I'm pronouncing that in the best way possible. I'm glad to be part of the podcast. Looking forward to sharing your insights, answering hard questions. It has been a while since I've been in such a position. Since ALA, I don't know how many years ago that was, but glad to be here as well.
When I was at ALA, one of the student-led ventures that was doing real well was blockchain, right? And I think you told me that that's one of the ventures that you established at the academy. So that's interesting. It's interesting to finally meet the guy behind the invention.
I would go ahead and say we were many guys actually, so it wasn't just me and that sort of player. We had a really strong community when I was graduating of about 20 to 25 people doing African Blockchain Initiative. We started building content and sending it out to universities actually, starting with ALU. We had contacts there. We also started sending content to UCT, had a chunk of Kenyan universities. So you could go ahead and say African Blockchain started as a club locally, but I think in our year when we were leaving, whatever content we were doing internally, we had different communities across different universities that were sharing that with. That's actually what got me into doing education extremely deeply. I even have a blockchain course on Udemy. I think I have over 10,000 students on that. So it's very interesting. That's what made me really interested in teaching people to a really good degree. So you caught me there by taking me back to that days. I didn't expect that necessarily. Yeah.
Wow, over 10,000 people on Udemy. That's a lot.
Yes, though I would go ahead and call myself an average instructor. The really top instructors have 100,000, 500,000 students. But on my end, I think I dropped a course like 4 years ago, right? And gradually, it's just grown to 10,000 students all through. Probably end of this year, because I miss teaching as much as possible, at least from what I knew at that particular front. I'll probably do one on data science. I enjoy tech a lot, probably one in programming as well. See how much we can impact that. I think now slightly more mature than what I did 4 years ago in that course. Yeah.
And you seem so passionate about technology.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think when you talk about passion for technology, it actually started with blockchains. I was not a developer when I was at African Leadership Academy. Unfortunately not. I got into the lingo of blockchains and started going to conferences. Started learning a lot online when we were building the African blockchain content all through. And you get to a level where it does not matter how much you know in regards to the applications of this new technology. You want to be able to go to the next step of developing it. And so that's what sparked my interest into learning how to code, getting into the tech field now, not as more of like a blockchain enthusiast, but now as a full techie. And I remember I just started the journey by myself all through, learned to code, spent a whole year or so, kept improving all through, decided to focus in data science. These days I'm very big on the data science layer. I think it's been 4 years for me to be in industry, handling credit risk most of the time right now, which is not a problem there. And at least now you can go ahead and say, you don't just talk and teach things from, let's say, a business perspective. You can come in and teach things from a technical perspective, get people to build things. I've been very lucky to interact one-on-one with students. I think I did share when you started Chaptr bootcamps. I was the first teacher at Chaptr bootcamps, and it was nice to see the people who I was able to walk through their tech journey, getting employed 12 months in. And right now, some of them still work at Chaptr bootcamps now, Zindo School as technical mentors. So you could go ahead and say the interest in blockchain forced me. I would go ahead and say forced me, because I really wanted to keep doing more, to also be very vast in code so that I can start building the things I was showcasing to people as a possibility there. And the moment I got into code, I did shy off. I just kept going deeper and deeper, and that's how I ended up in the tech sphere as I am right now.
What is it about coding that interested you?
I don't know. We could go ahead and say just building stuff here. There's a thrill you get from having an idea that's purely scratchy to being able to just model it out, build it, and then just get it out there and see the results. And you could do this in very many different ways. It could be as simple as using no-code, low-code tools to get something working, or now going all the way from scratch and building something and with pure code and seeing it, to even just building dashboards. Let's say you're running a business for 3 years and you just want to be able to visualize and get insights off of the data. You can use tools, or you can start coding these things from scratch as well and having analytical dashboards. And for me, it's about having imagination in your head and being able to map it out and build something that other people can see that interests me. I've always been a builder, and now when you have the technical aspects to it, you kill the imposter syndrome of pretending to be a builder, and you actually start building things that can actually be used. Yeah.
So can you tell us briefly about the two organizations that you have started, Chaptr and Zindua?
Okay, I will go ahead and say, just give you the proper background story. I think in around 2019, personal story, I joined university in Italy. It was called Bocconi. I did struggle a lot with fees in this particular university, had to withdraw from school. That particular year, did not enjoy it whatsoever at all. Not affording rent, not affording fees, all that. Let's just say I was in one of the limbos that you don't want to be caught up with. I remember times I used to stay at the train in Garibaldi. There was a lot of immigrants over there. You know, when you just are trying to save out on rent. And I learned a lot of French staying with some of these Senegalese immigrants around there, just people from all over the place. But I was just caught up in a place where I didn't like my experience so far. I had a couple of European friends in schools who, if you did not get school financing, you just apply for a loan and all was good. And because now I did know what's the future for me, I just said, I've always thought I'm an entrepreneur. I'm saying thought there because I had started businesses that really had not gotten to product market fit at that front. And here I was in a place where I was researching a lot of things about education financing just to figure out what I'm going to do with my education. And I stumbled upon things such as learn now, pay later, income share agreements in the American education space. And I wish I had someone to give me an income share agreement at that particular front, but I didn't. So I remember traveling back to Nairobi, and the first thing in my head was, I don't know what my future with school is. So what we're going to do is I'm going to double down on what I think is my sphere of influence. At that time, I had learned to code. It had been 12 to 24 months thereabout just by myself. And I thought, what if I just started a school that kind of targets people like me, people who want to learn something, but they do not have the money upfront. You really can't get a bank loan and the likes. And we're going to run a pilot. So I remember December 2019, opened a WhatsApp group. Had about 200 people apply. We created Chaptr bootcamps. We were the first coding school to pioneer learn now, pay later income share agreements. So you join us and you only pay at the moment you're earning. We didn't even have the curriculum. We didn't even have an admissions process. We were just generating interest there. So after getting 200 applications, we created an aptitude, we created the admissions process, and we filtered out and got the first 35 students. And in March 2020, we actually started Chaptr bootcamps, 35 students, half of them doing blockchain, half of them doing data science. We were building the curriculum as they were running. I was glad to be helped by an Elia Loom called Gibson, who was a very good technical guy in that particular year as well. He was in his gap year, and that's how we got started, right? Just bare bones school, no structures whatsoever, 35 students thereabout. Now, how this transforms to two organizations is what's interesting. 1 year in, we realized most students used to come to us, not because we were the best school in the market, but purely because we were the school that allowed them to come in, learn, and pay once they're earning. And we were able to consolidate and understand that our mode was people wanted that sort of financing layer. However, when you're running a school, there's a lot of human capital needed to scale. There's a lot of focus you need to work on student retention as well. When you come into the tech or vocational training industry, like student dropouts are high. That's what we experienced for the first 2 years as well. Particularly when you give people 100% financing, they're not making any upfront commitment. They're coming to you. They're not serious. They drop out after 2 months. So we were gradually testing out the field up until we realized people need to pay a small commitment fee. At least they've committed and the like. So, but we understood our mode was the financing layer. And that's when we decided to say, if this is our core mode, how about we create an architecture that allows other schools to also offer learn now, pay later financing. And at that time, when we were running a school, we had looked for providers, people who could help us with our income share agreements in Africa. We couldn't find anyone. This was not like the American market where you could go ahead and find Meratas. Vemo Education, I know, closed, or Join Blair and the likes, or even added in Europe as well. We didn't have that sort of architecture. So we had to build the architecture for our school in-house. And then we realized that that's our core strength. So how can we start pushing it out to other schools? And that's how we ended up pivoting from being a coding school to offering services to allow schools to offer learn now, pay later options, not just income share agreements, but also flexible payments. And from 2021 onwards, Chaptr Global has focused on that. Now, the interesting thing about this pivot is you can't go to all your students who've been with you for 1 year or so and tell them, yo, students, we are pivoting. It's time for you to go home, right? You really can't do that. So we had to maintain them up until they finished. And so when we did that sort of pivot, we just asked them, you know what, we'll still close this. But then the moment that we were thinking of closing it after they finished their program, all of a sudden we got a spike in demand. We got a spike in demand, and we got the spike in demand. There's no way we could close again. So what we decided to do was rebrand that layer of the business to Zindua School. Because this was in direct conflict with what we do at Chaptr, we were able to kind of relieve ourselves of that sort of operational management. Myself and my co-founder focus on Chaptr. And now Zindua is run by a team of 10, growing extremely fast, month on month as well, and offers programs in data science and software. Unfortunately, blockchain is not so much on demand in the local market. And my day-to-day is focused on trying to model learn now, pay later financing for schools across the continent. Currently focused in Kenya and doing a pilot in Nigeria. So that's just the general scope of what I do. But I am focused on Chaptr, and we have a team on Zindua, and I just probably do oversight as board over there.
Wow. I really love such stories, stories of individuals who have gone through something. Well, they've gone through an experience that it wasn't the best experience, and then they wanted to make it better. And now they even think of, how can I make this better for other people so they don't have to go through what I've gone. So that's incredible. And I mean, the work that you're doing is massive because, the rise in demand shows how many people need this as a solution, right? How many people need the model, right, of, learn and pay later. And it's amazing to see that it's growing, and, you're getting more students, and the impact is massive. And the fact that you've just proven that, this is something that people want, right? And now we can create a solution for them. And now we're even thinking of how do we even grow this solution so even more people can have access to our services. Yeah. So that's amazing.
Yes. I know it's a very tricky industry. If you took me back 3-4 years ago, I would tell you don't do learn now, pay later financing just because of the risk factor. I wish I just started with a simple product, but then it's been a long journey all the way in. We figured out a lot of the things that were difficult for us to figure out. We're starting to see really good traction as well. We're waiting to vet our non-performing loan figures by end of year as well, so that we can also start scaling whatever we offer in the market. But I will go ahead and say, I think the best way to enjoy entrepreneurship is to try, even if you don't have the full idea fledged out. Just try, listen to your customers, and you'll always grow into something. I didn't think when we were starting this that we'll be doing learn now, pay later for schools. We just thought we were going to be a school all through, but now you can see the core impact we have is with partnering with schools to make this a reality for more and more students.
How does the future for Zindo and Chaptr look like?
Okay, I'll go ahead and say for Zindua, and you really have to get me to actually, I really have to separate Zindua from Chaptr to a very cool degree, because I handle operations today at Chaptr, and Zindua is run by a team. I happen to be a shareholder, so and I try to separate myself from day-to-day management so that to avoid conflict, because we do manage financing for direct competitors to Zindua at Chaptr. So I just have to keep mentioning that time and again. But we always give disclosures to everyone we handle financing to of our shareholding at Zindua. So I'd go ahead and say, for Zindua, someone who's taught there, who's run operations there up until we hit break even and product market fit, the future is great. The growth rate is extremely high when you think about it. There's a clear demand for a school with high retention rates. right, that is able to offer students not only the learn now, pay later financing that you're talking about, but also personalized learning. What you'll see is different between Zindo and schools on the market is what we call the mentorship-driven learning model. Students don't learn in a classroom of 50 and you're thrown there and you're student number 49 and no one cares about your growth. Students actually are assigned technical mentors and they're able to work one-on-one, three-on-one, five-on-one. It's a very small cohort of students. And that way, Zindo has been able to achieve 95, 99% retention rate from module on module, which is something that's very hard to hear in the market right now. So in regards to the future of Zindua, which has purely been driven by its own revenue, it's not fundraised even once, hit break even purely from revenue and is growing from revenue. Probably the future will be to think about fundraisers that this can scale across different countries as well. But once again, I will still separate myself from operations there because right now I'm a shareholder, but we have a team that we trust extremely well to kind of drive that sort of layer end on end. When you talk about Chaptr, we handle financing for a couple of schools, Zindua School being one of them as well, just to answer that. And for us, the future is we've focused ourselves in the coding school environment. So we currently partner with coding schools to be able to offer learn now, pay later. We want to expand this to other vocational training, high outcomes institutions. The reason we did coding schools is because that's where we started, right? We understood the outcome figures, how much you're likely to earn in that particular market. We understand the market demand, what sort of roles people want. It was very easy for us to really focus on that as a start. But we are now really looking at the market to see what other sort of short-term programs can you do as an individual that will give you high outcomes. So we're trying to look at if you're a university graduate, you go ahead and do your CPA or you do your CMA. Are you likely to get a job or not, right? Is the job you're going to get, does the salary warrant the amount that you're being asked to pay by School X over here? As soon as you're done in vocational training, we'll think about master's education, which is slightly lower risk. But I know the one market that everyone's looking forward to having learn now, pay later, but pretty much presents the biggest trouble is undergraduate education. There's just so much risk involved with it. Schools are charging insane prices. I'm talking about the local market in Africa here, but their outcome figures, you can't have a graduation rate of 80%, only 40% of your graduate get a job on admissions, and you're charging insane fees to them as well. And while we want to do financing for that, it is going to take a lot to figure out the high outcome schools and also figure out ways to vet students who are likely to have the highest outcomes for us to be able to do financing in a sustainable way for undergraduates. So you could go ahead and say our focus right now is vocational training. You don't have a job, you want to upskill into tech, you want to upskill into accounting, things are going to give you a job very, very fast. Programs that are 6 to 12 months. After that, we'll probably do master's education and MBAs, and then we'll start looking at ways to get into undergrad education if the risk factor is able to be reduced to a good degree. And that's the future for Chaptr, which means based on the cohorts we have, we'll use the performance of those cohorts to raise money from low-cost debt to be able to scale this. Our target countries will be Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, just given the sheer numbers that are available in the market. But we'll also be looking at other African countries in this space as well.
I really love the work that you're doing. And I hope that you become even more successful so that you can open operations in other countries in the African continent, because this is a solution that most young African students need. And so proud of the work that you're doing and good luck.
Yes, I think, thank you very much. Yes, I enjoy it, right? I know it's challenging by itself, but if you enjoy what you do, and for me, it comes from, I have been on the other position of finding it difficult to pay for fees. So figuring out solutions for people to pay fees as well is what I really want to keep focusing my life on in the next, I don't know how many years, and see whether we can grow our impact from the numbers we have right now to probably 100,000 students across Africa being able to be financed.
And I'm pretty sure you'll be able to do that because it's a problem that requires a solution and people are there looking for the solution.
That is a fair point. We'll cross our fingers on that. Every day you make a small step as you work towards your target. Yes.
That's true. Thank you so much, Cyril.
Thank you very much. I can't believe that's 15 minutes, but thank you very much for having me there. That was extremely fast. Awesome.